was too young to buy a pouch of chewing tobacco, too young to buy a beer, but was old enough to go into a gun store and buy 2 assault weapons and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. That young man murdered 19 innocent children, innocent little babies who had their whole lives in front of them. That young man killed 2 teachers who were trying to protect those children. Now, I want you to remember that in the aftermath of El Paso, Governor Abbott promised to push for red flag laws. And then an election happened and he forgot all about that. And so on Tuesday, this slaughter happened. And on Wednesday, the first person to confront Governor Abbott, the first person to speak truth to power, was my friend Beto O'Rourke. And what he told the governor is, if you don't do something, if you don't call the special session, if you don't pass common sense gun reforms, that and mental health reforms that the majority of all of us, Democrat and Republican, support, this is on you. And for that, he was heckled, he was escorted out, he was cursed, and he was insulted. But implicit in leadership is sometimes, folks, you have to go first. I know a thing or two about going first. And sometimes, if you don't go first, there's no room for anyone else to go second. And so my friend went first, and the next day, Senator Roland Gutierrez confronted the governor. And he said, call us back. And then shortly after that, even Republicans were saying, call a special session. We want to do something. This is after my friend went first. My friend went first, and someone went second. And then someone went third, and someone went fourth. Because that's what leadership is. Leadership is leading. And because Beto went first, perhaps this time will be different. Perhaps because Beto went first, we'll have a special session. But it's going to take all of us pounding on this governor and making it in his selfish best interest to actually do something. Right? And well, we want to get rid of it. We want to get rid of it. When I think about this, the day the governor called for some sort of BS committees to study something, he couldn't put the word gun violence in there. He didn't have the word assault weapon in there. He had some BS words. Sorry, Reverend, some BS words in there. He didn't call for a special session. You know, if Beto O'Rourke was our governor right now, there'd be a special session. And it'd be the sort of common sense thing that you and I know would actually work. Like, hey, if you're not old enough to buy a beer, you're not old enough to buy an assault weapon. Right? We want to put in place those red flag laws so we could find people like we would have been able to find with the young man who murdered 23 people in El Paso. Close the loopholes. And he's already talking about this at every stop he goes to. Expand Medicaid, which includes mental health care, so people can get the health care they so desperately need. He's not governor yet, but with your help, he will be. Beto O'Rourke is the leader we need for the state that we love. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you my friend and the next governor of the great state of Texas, Beto O'Rourke.
Hey Dallas, thank you all for being here. Thank you for coming out. Means a lot to me. Thank you. And let me just thank you and credit you also for the people that you put into places of public trust. You really outdone yourselves with Eddie Bernice Johnson, with Senator Royce West, Representative Carl Sherman, future Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. And listen, I learned a thing or two by showing up in Dallas County over the last 5 years. My guaranteed biggest applause line is to say, County Judge Clay Jenkins. And I appreciate it. So, literally at this hour, this very minute, yesterday, I was back home in El Paso, Texas. And I remember exactly what we were doing. Our middle child, Molly, who is 13 years old, will be 14 a little bit later this month, was getting ready for her, we can't call it a graduation ceremony, but a completion ceremony from middle school. The person running the ceremony corrected me and others many times when we said, we're so excited that our daughter is graduating. She's completing middle school right now. And Molly bought a dress for the occasion. She is president of her National Junior Honor Society, so she's got the NJHS sash over her dress. She's beautiful, and her mom thinks the dress is just a little too short. I said, you know what? She looks beautiful. Let's go with this. And Molly's frustrated because we're a little bit late getting out the door. She's waiting by the car, waiting for me, waiting for Amy. We were supposed to be there right at 4:45. This is El Paso time. And where are we, guys? Come on. So we jump in the car. We race down to El Paso High, where this completion ceremony is going to take place for her graduation from middle school. She's about to go there next year. We let Molly out. We say, you go meet up with your class. We're going to go park the car, and then we're going to find a place in the auditorium. So Molly gets out of the car, and Amy immediately turns to me, and she said, you have the flowers, right? And I look at her, and I say, shit. And she says, okay. And so she gets out to go secure a place. I drive to Albertsons. I can't figure out which bouquet to get. I get two. And drive back, and I get there just in time, and we get to see her graduate and complete middle school. And as she's walking across the stage, any of you who have watched your child or grandchild do this, you know exactly how this feels. I mean, you just cannot help it. There are tears welling up inside of you. You are so damn proud of what this girl has done over the last 13, almost 14 years of her life. The effort, the work, the fact that she's on the all-A honor roll. I mean, I'm just welling with pride for little Molly. I felt something similar today. I was already in Dallas, and Amy sent me a video of our youngest who's just about to complete elementary school. He's on his last days of 5th grade, and it's field day at Mesita Elementary, same elementary school I went to. And it's a video of Henry rounding the lap as part of his relay team. And he's racing against other kids, and again, just super proud. And the last person I saw before I jumped in Cynthia's truck as we made our way to the airport this morning was my oldest, Ulysses, who's just completing his freshman year of high school. And he'd just come back from a run. He gets up super early, runs before school, and then goes to his classes. He wants to be the best cross-country runner in the state of Texas, and he's working so hard to get this done. Now, I say this, why am I bragging on my kids and telling you their names and drawing them to everybody's attention right now? There's no one that I love more in the world than those three human beings. They are everything to me. They make my life make sense. I understand why I'm on this planet in the first place when I am with them. And I say that because I want us all to draw to mind how we feel about our kids and our grandkids. or if you don't have kids and grandkids, how you know your parents felt about you. Because when last week I was in Uvalde, and I was meeting on this day a week ago with parents who had lost that person that they love most in the world. It gives them their purpose in their lives. To see the look in their face, the fact that their focus was far beyond even this earth when I looked into their eyes. The pain, the grief, the suffering, the absolute disbelief. There is no way this can be real. I heard more than one parent say to me. I think this moment calls for us to try to imagine, because we all say, I cannot even imagine what that would feel like. Please try to imagine what that would feel like for 19 different families to lose that little boy or that little girl that was their everything. With just one more day of school left for them in their school, the great things that were left undone in their lives that they were surely to accomplish. One of those little girls, Alithia, who was shot in that classroom in Uvalde last week. I was invited to her home by her parents, Jess and Ryan. And Jess, her mom, said, there's two things really, Beto, that I want from you, that I want from the world right now. One, I want you to know that my daughter existed. And I want you to know that she was beautiful. She was always happy. And she was an incredibly talented artist. And she pointed to the drawings and the paintings that were up all over the kitchen, that were in the living room as well. The paintings and drawings that had been copied faithfully by Alithia's 5-year-old sister, Akila, who wanted to be her sister when she grew up. And so if Alithia had drawn a horse, there was an imperfect copy of that from Akila right underneath it, right there. She really was incredibly talented and gifted. And she was so young. Her balloons from her 10th birthday party were still clinging to the ceiling in the kitchen where we were sitting and talking about her life. So remember that name, Alithia. I've never heard it before last Wednesday. I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. I hope we never forget it for the rest of our lives. Let her live on through us. That's one thing that her mom asked. The second thing is, she said, I don't want any mother to ever feel the way that I do right now. And she didn't have a prescription of policies that she wanted to lay on me. She wasn't looking for any from me at that moment. She was just telling me what she wanted and what she expected of us, of all of us, her neighbors here in the great state of Texas. And I thought about that too, and I thought about that accountability that's now on me, that's now on all of us to fulfill her wishes. Make sure that we always remember Alithia, and we do everything in our power to prevent another mother from feeling exactly the way that Jess feels this moment. Just a week from when her daughter was killed, just days from when they will put her in the ground this weekend. There are people here among us who have lost their children. And your kids' names might not have made it in the newspaper. I might not know them. I may not know you. We lose so many children in this country, and especially in this state, to gun violence. It has become so numbingly common. Sometimes it does not make the 5 o'clock news. Sometimes you don't see that kid's name in print in the Dallas Morning News or the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Sometimes that kid is only known to their parents and their close friends at school, and once they move on, so does that child's memory. But you're here right now, and I want to thank you for being here, because you're here knowing full well there's nothing that's going to bring back that daughter or that son to you. But you're here right now because you also want to make sure this never happens to another parent, and you're here to find out and commit yourself to doing whatever it takes within your power and within our power collectively to get that done. You all are my heroes for joining us here tonight, and I'm grateful to you. I want to thank you. Now, if there's no one I love more than my kids, there's no one whose judgment I fear more than my kids. You all know what I mean if you've got kids or grandkids, right? And sooner or later, they're going to ask each one of us, because our kids are our conscience, what did you do? Now, Dad, you knew this stuff was going on. I mean, I read all about it. There were 21 school shootings in the state of Texas in the year 2022 thus far on the first day of June. Hundreds of kids have died just in this very community over the last years, while we treat it as a natural disaster or an unfortunate storm that has passed through our community, as though we are powerless to do anything to stop it. Dad, what did you do about it? Was it politically inconvenient to say the truth? Was it too hard to bring people together to find the common ground and start solving some of these problems before another kid died? Was there too much money and political points to be scored on the other side of this debate, so you just decided that you weren't going to take it on? The choice that we make right now as a state, each of us individually, is going to define us and potentially haunt us for the rest of our lives. And I'm asking us to think about that choice right now. And I'm also asking you to think about the choices that those who represent you in positions of power and public trust have made, and have made on your behalf. I'll give you one example. Like you, as soon as I heard that there was a shooting in Uvalde, and that potentially children were killed, maybe a school teacher as well, I wanted to know everything I could about what had happened. And I tuned in to a press conference given by our governor, who was just outside of Abilene, Texas, in Taylor County. And if you've seen the tape of the press conference, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, you should watch it. At that point, he only knew that 14 children had been killed, and one teacher. And he gave the description of that shooting as though perhaps he was giving the weather forecast for the state of Texas. Without passion, without any resonance, without it affecting him in the slightest, as far as I could tell. And then here was the choice. After he reported out to the state what had happened, here was the choice. He had a fundraiser scheduled that night in Walker County, which was about 300 miles to the east and to the south. And he had the people of Uvalde just directly south, 240 miles, a shorter distance, who were just beginning to grieve. The bodies hadn't all the way been counted, not all the deaths had been reported. That was the choice. Go to the fundraiser, or go to where these families need that help right now. As you know from reading the news, he chose the fundraiser. He drove 300 miles to count dollars while they were still counting bodies in that community. Now, it's not just that night, and let me make this clear, because we have some choices to make, and we're all owed the information so that we make intelligent ones. It's not just what he chose to do on the night of this horrific massacre. It's the choices that he's made for the last 7 years that he's been the governor of our state. So in that time, there have been 6 major mass shootings in the state of Texas. After every one of them, he holds a press conference. He talks about our thoughts and prayers. He describes it as evil, which it may be. I mean, that sounds right to me, but when you leave it at evil, I mean, can I control evil? That's up to God and the devil. That's out of my hands. Maybe it's mental health, maybe it's video games, maybe it's doors, maybe there's not enough prayer in our school. Anything but what could actually have caused the problem. But always he promises there's going to be some action. Thoughts and prayers aren't enough this time, and then the next time, and then the next time, and then the next time, and then the next. I mentioned that there have been 21 school shootings so far this year. Since Greg Abbott has been governor, the average number of kids killed by gunfire in the state of Texas has doubled in the state of Texas. You know, the judge mentioned how much easier it is to purchase a firearm, including an AR-15 that was designed for use on a battlefield, than to do so many of the other things that we take for granted in this state. So on his watch, he has chosen to make it not harder, but easier for people to purchase a firearm. Last year, he bragged, with the NRA right by his side, that he defied the police and law enforcement in the state of Texas, who begged him not to sign permitless carry into law, and did it anyhow, allowing anyone, including violent felons, to carry guns on our streets. In a state where more cops have been gunned down than in any other. And predictably, gun violence has spiked through the roof. Because those cops said, Mr. Governor, in the last 5 years, 38,000 licenses to carry a firearm were denied in the state because we deemed the applicant too dangerous to themselves or to others in their lives to carry a gun. And if you sign this, all 38,000 are going to be armed and loaded on our streets, as will the tens of thousands who knew better than to ever apply for a license to carry, because they never would have passed the background check. They're all armed and loaded on our streets as well. Not only did he not take action to save the lives of our kids, he took action to make it more certain that we would lose the lives of our kids going forward. And it's not just when it comes to guns. Because if we're going to talk about the children of this state, if we are going to assert that we are truly pro-life for all the lives of the children in our state, and we must look at all of the ways that this governor has let down our kids. You know that we're the least insured state in the United States of America. What that means is that there are more kids going without life-saving access to a doctor or a mental health care provider or prescription medication than any other state in the union. More kids die of diabetes in the state of Texas than in any other state in this country right now. I heard the governor talk about mental health care. Ladies and gentlemen, we rank 50th in access in mental health. Now, the largest provider of mental health care services is the county jail system in the state of Texas. Largest inpatient provider, if somebody needs to spend some time overnight, it's the Harris County Jail in downtown Houston, Texas. There are people with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder and clinical depression who will get arrested on purpose in this state to be taken to the one place they are guaranteed any kind of care, unless anyone labor under the illusion that this is a matter of dollars. This is the 9th largest economy on the planet, the state of Texas. We have a GDP of $2 trillion, a biannual budget of $250 billion for the state of Texas. It is not for lack of resources. It is for lack of political will and leadership for those who need it most. And lastly, listen to this. You wonder why the governor is hell-bent on pursuing the parents of transgender kids, right? Like, where did this come from all of a sudden? Of all the things that we face in this state, why is this your priority? Why did you call a special session, literally, folks, last year to determine which kids can play which middle school athletics? I guess that was the biggest problem in the state of Texas. Forgive me for not knowing. It may have had something to do that he wanted us to fight over this. He wanted us to distract the rest of the state. He wanted to pick on literally the most vulnerable children among us, who are navigating one of the toughest things that I can imagine a child going through, with parents who love the heck out of these kiddos, trying to help them along the way, because Child Protective Services, also known as CPS, which he is in charge of, since the year 2020, has lost 100 children's lives in the custody and care of the state of Texas. There's this great federal judge named Judge Jack.
Why are you fantasizing about killing children?
I'm happy to give you a microphone now. That's all right. for you? And let me just make this clear. I'm gonna make a few more comments, and then we are gonna turn this microphone that I'm holding over to you. And even if, and maybe especially if, you disagree with me, or you have a different point of view, or you come to a different conclusion on any of the issues that I've talked about, I want to hear from you. My job as your governor is to make sure that I represent and serve all of us. And I don't care if you're a Democrat, or Republican, or an independent, no me importa. You're a Texan, and I want to make sure that I have a chance to hear from you and work with you. But we're talking about CPS. And these kids in the foster care system, 32,000 of them, some of them will spend tonight sleeping in CPS offices, on top of, underneath the desks, in the hallways. Some of them who have been trafficked and rescued, or so they thought, were turned over to privatized providers by CPS under Abbott, and then allegedly trafficked, or their images sold to child pornographers, again, in the custody and care of the state of Texas. There's a federal judge named Judge Jack, who 6 years ago said, hey, people of Texas, and especially you, Greg Abbott, the kids who emerge from this foster care system are more damaged than when they entered. We've got to do something about it. And she highlighted all of these problems. Well, in January this year, she issued another opinion, and she said, this situation, which I have just described, has gone from bad to worse. 100 kids died since the year 2020 in our care. It wasn't somebody else's problem. They belong to us through our governor right here in the state of Texas. So whether it's the health care that could have saved their lives that they went without and died, whether it's those within CPS care in the foster care system, whether it's the victims of gun violence throughout the state of Texas, it is directly a result of the choices that one man has made. But ultimately, and I hope you agree, that choice comes down to us. Because as I mentioned, that is a position of public trust. It does not belong to any one person or any one political party. It belongs to all of us. And we have a choice to make, as the Congresswoman just shared earlier, on who's going to hold that position and what they will do with it over the next 4 years. So let me end with this, and then I want to listen to you. Here's how we help instead of hurt the children of Texas. When it comes to CPS, there needs to be oversight, there needs to be accountability. We must hire more CPS caseworkers because the load on those that remain is literally unbearable right now. There's got to be accountability when any child is harmed or we lose the life of any of our precious little ones, especially when they're in our custody and care. As one of the foster parents told me, we also have to foster the family and not just the child. That means making sure that mental health care is available to these families who are doing without right now. We've got to work to place kids, when appropriate, with family members and make it easier for a grandmother or their aunt or uncle to be able to foster after we've done our due diligence and our vetting. We've got to look out for those kids. They're last on the mind of those in power right now. They must have a place of priority in this next administration. When it comes to healthcare, this one is really a no-brainer. We are one of the last states in the nation to fail to expand Medicaid. And folks, we came up with the program. Lyndon Baines Johnson signed it into law in the summer of 1965. That $10 billion that we are rejecting every single year, that's your federal tax dollars that are sitting up there in Washington and now going to another state. Our neighbors in Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, 3 with Republican governors, have all expanded that. If we were to do that in the state of Texas, we would connect more kids with that care that's going to save their lives. As governor, I'm going to make that a priority as well. And then, do we need to look at how we make our schools even safer? Absolutely. And I want to listen to teachers and to parents and to counselors and to librarians and to nurses and to administrators. They're going to be able to tell us what they need in their schools. And let's make sure that we're listening. Are there challenges with mental health in the state? Absolutely. You heard me, we're 50th in the nation. We have to, we must do better. And in addition to expanding Medicaid, that's a great start, but it is not enough. As governor, I'm going to pursue first in the nation from 50th in mental health care access, so that we're all well enough to live to our full potential and to fulfill our promise. But though those in power will do everything in their power to deny this next subject, it is on us to make sure that we bring it up and we stand up to be counted to do the right thing when it comes to gun violence in our communities. And you cannot address gun violence without addressing guns. So, I have traveled the state of Texas. I don't know if you've heard me say this, but I've been to each of the 254 counties of the state of Texas. I talk to people who agree with me. I listen to people who vigorously disagree with me, including on this issue. And here's where I find some common ground. And this is a place where I intend to start as governor. Number one, if you want to purchase a firearm in Texas, that's fine. You should just go through a background check so that we know a little yourself. If you're going to harm somebody in your life, if you're going to harm somebody in my life, I want to know about that before you try to purchase that gun. Now, in Midland, Odessa in 2019, a guy walked into a federally licensed firearms dealer and tried to buy an AR-15. Didn't pass a background check because a federally licensed dealer is required to go through one. But we don't have universal background checks in Texas, so he was able to buy the very same weapon out of the trunk of a private seller in that community. He then turned around and used that weapon on the people of Midland, Odessa, killed 7 of them before being killed himself. Now, universal background checks could have stopped that tragedy. Safe storage laws. How did I learn about that? Well, when I went to Santa Fe, Texas, in Galveston County to meet the parents of those who lost their children in the Santa Fe high school shooting, one of those moms, Rhonda Hart, who's become an all-time friend and hero to me, she said, Beto, I propose, after losing my daughter in this shooting, that we have a safe storage law. Now, the woman who proposed it, Rhonda, Army veteran, gun owner, lifelong Texan, she's one of us, and she says, listen, if you have kids in the house, if you have someone who is unstable and may harm themselves or harm somebody else, all this law will require is that you keep that firearm secured. So they can't take it out of the house as that 17-year-old did in Santa Fe and walk into that school and kill those people as they did my daughter. So safe storage law seems to make sense. Red flag laws or extreme risk protection orders. This is when somebody is saying, hey, I want to shoot up my school. Or hey, I want to kill my girlfriend. Or hey, I want to do something to myself. When they start saying that, or writing that down in a journal, or doodling it on the edge of their homework in their classroom, when you have a red flag law on the book, you can intervene. And you can retrieve that gun from that person through due process before they use it to harm someone. Now, when the shooter left North Texas in Allen and drove to El Paso in August of 2019, before he left, and after he ordered online an AK-47, another weapon originally designed to kill people on a battlefield. It's high impact, high velocity round, just shreds to pieces everything inside your system so you bleed out before we can save your life and get you back on your feet. When he ordered that, his mom called the police. I don't know what's going on. Why is my son buying a military-grade weapon? And the police, as is the law at the time, and as is the law right now, they said, ma'am, I'm sorry. There is nothing that we can do about it. He drove that weapon 600 miles, walked into that Walmart, and slaughtered 23 people on the Saturday before school started in August of 2019 in my hometown. As the judge said, he said that he came to El Paso to kill people to repel the Hispanic invasion of Texas. If we had a red flag law, when his mom called the cops and said, hey, my son is acting strange, he bought this weapon, I think we need to do something, there would have been a legal path to intervene and perhaps stop that massacre. Someone right here just said that's common sense. And then lastly, I keep mentioning these weapons of war, these AR-15s, these AK-47s. I remember after the Parkland shooting, I was in Wichita Falls, and there was a Vietnam-era veteran who approached me, and he said, you know, that guy in Parkland was hunting those kids with more firepower than I had in the jungles of Vietnam in the late 1960s. He said, something is wrong with this, Beto, when we are selling weapons of war to civilians and then act surprised when those weapons are used to kill people, because that's exactly what they were designed to do. I don't think we should have AR-15s and AK-47s in our lives, in our community. Leave that stuff on. Those are the choices before us. We're talking about choices that we have as a state. Choice about who's going to lead the state. Choices about the agenda that we'll pursue. Choices about who is important. Is it our donors and our contributors and the political points that we can score, or is it the children of the state of Texas? I think President Company agrees it's the children. And here's why I'm hopeful and optimistic, even within the shadow of such devastation and death that we all witnessed this past week. First is that you're here. You could be doing anything right now with anyone. But you joined your neighbors and complete strangers, Democrats, Republicans, independents alike, to come together to do something better for the people of your community, of your family, and of this state. And that is encouraging. But there is another choice that I'm going to ask you to make right now. As the Congresswoman said earlier, I'm not going to win this election on my own. Democratic Party is not going to make it happen. God bless them. This one is going to be on all of us. And it does not mean all of us in this room. We also are insufficient to the task. It is all of us in the state of Texas. In 2020, most important presidential election since 1864, in my opinion, 7 million eligible Texans did not cast a ballot. In Dallas County, 400,000 people who had the right to vote, were eligible, in many cases were registered, did not cast a ballot. Since then, 100,000 new registrants on the rolls. That's 500,000 people just in this county. 500,000 people just in this county who have not participated in an election yet, but are eligible to do so. Ladies and gentlemen, I lost to Ted Cruz by 216,000 votes in 2018. There are 500,000 votes here in this county that we can bring in if we will get on the doors. We'll have conversations with complete strangers about important issues just like this one. Imagine how awkward and uncomfortable that's going to be. Imagine how hard it's going to be when it's July and it's 102 degrees out and it is humid, and the last thing that you want to do is be outside having this conversation with a complete stranger. Some of these are going to be tough. Hey, I don't want to hear from you. Slam the door in your face. Some of these are going to be heartbreaking. Let me tell you about losing my dad, who had PTSD, couldn't get into the VA for an appointment, and ended up taking his life. I've been there for those kinds of conversations. And some of them are going to be absolutely transformative. They're going to be connecting with people who did not know how to vote, or what the reason to vote was, or were never invited to participate in our elections. That's the number one reason given by the 7 million who didn't vote for not voting. No one ever asked them to. So if you're willing to get out in that hot sun, if you want to have those conversations, if you want to take on the toughest job I can imagine right now, I want you in this campaign, knocking on doors, being with the people who are going to decide the outcome of this next election. That's how we're going to save the lives of the children of Texas. We're going to do this together. Are you all with me? All right, I'm with you. And Cynthia, where are our people? So, back under the hoop, there are people waving their hands. I just see 2, now I see 3, 4, 5, or 6. They have clipboards, and they've got yellow vests on. If you're willing to knock on doors, we have 7 block walking canvases already set up and scheduled. These are ready to go. We're just waiting for the people to join us. So please get your name on that clipboard. It's the only way we overcome the things that challenge us. It's the only way we achieve the things that we want to do for our kids. It's the only way that we save this state. Thank you all for being with us. We're going to turn the microphone over to you now. So Cynthia just reminded me that the first people that we want to recognize and turn the microphone over to are survivors of gun violence. If you have lost someone in your life to gun violence, if you have a story that you want to share, we want to make sure that you have the first opportunity to add your voice to the conversation and to make sure that we are all brought in to what you've experienced and understand how important what we're about to do really is. So Cynthia, if you'll recognize our first survivor.
Hello. My name is Jamaica Brown, and I'm a gun survivor fellow for Everytown. Thank God, I like to tell people that I don't look like what I've been through because I've been through it. And I'm just here to share that gun violence doesn't discriminate, and I'm living proof of that. You know, I grew up in the suburbs. My parents had decent jobs and they worked hard, and I was in sports. I was a great student, and you know, everything seemed pretty good. And I was in college and just sitting around, and I had kind of everything going for me. And I was affected by gun violence first in 1999 when my stepdad's mother, someone came into their home and was trying to rob it, did not realize my grandmother was there, and they found an unsecured gun and saw my grandma in there and just decided to open fire. And just like he was saying, with those secure gun laws, and so that was the first time I was affected by gun violence. I grew up as a daddy's girl. You know, my dad, we looked just alike, and then as time went on, you know, having a teenage daughter, like most parents here experience a lot of different riffraff. I went off to college when we started to kind of separate a bit. And one morning I got a phone call from my mom that said that my dad was shot in a Whataburger parking lot. And you know, I just hearing the stories for the last couple weeks, you know, when I love Whataburger, you know, I love going to Whataburger, and it's never been the same since. And you know, and I look at that, and people should be able to go grocery shopping, and people should be able to go to Whataburger, and go to school, and go to church, and all these things without the fear of being harmed by a gun. But sadly, that's not our reality right now. So I think my biggest ask for everybody today is, if you have not heard of Everytown, please go to the Everytown website, and if you have your phone, please text ACT to 64433 and find out how you can get involved with the local Moms Demand Action Group or Everytown. Join in. Anybody that's here with a mom's red shirt on can tell you how to get involved, so it just doesn't stop now, so we can be ahead of the next shooting. Because, you know, like he said, you know, not all of us make the news, and so my dad was one that didn't make the news, but that doesn't take away from what our family's been through. So thank you for hearing me out. I appreciate it. Thank you all for coming.
Jamaica, that's powerful. You're powerful. Thank you. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Jamaica just gave a great shout out for Everytown and Moms Demand. And I believe there are now more members of Moms Demand in Everytown than there are of the NRA. Pretty powerful. Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Shawana Persley. Many of you probably don't know me, a lot of people do. I did spend a lot of time high profile on the news, but 5 years ago, on July 1st, will be the day that they found my daughter, Shamar Randall, which was 13. She was kidnapped from Lancaster and killed and left in a house in Oak Cliff. I just tell myself every day, you know, one day at a time. And that's what you have to do. Like he said, his kids are his life, my kids are my life. And I felt like I lost a big part of that when I lost Siobhan. I got shot in the east, I got Caleb. Siobhan was my baby girl. She was third child. She was my youngest girl that was just ready to be 13. You know, and all over something that didn't have nothing to do with us. Honestly, you know, it was just a way of them trying to get back what they lost to somebody that's not even really a part of our family. But these guns, oh my God, it played a big part in this whole situation. It plays a big part in a lot of other stuff too that happens here in Dallas. We just gotta find a way, y'all. We gotta find a way. We gotta find a way to reach out. And for those that don't have kids, or whether you do have kids, I make it my business, y'all. Regardless of the situation, regardless of what I lost, I let every child out here I know that I bumped into. Yeah, my name's Shaquana. My baby was 13 years old, and she was kidnapped. All over something that she didn't have nothing to do with. And that's just to bring it to their attention, make them be aware of their surroundings. You know, we all are at stake here. You know, we all grown. We all do our own thing. But y'all, it takes a village. Believe that. It takes a village. And the only way we're going to get our city back, the only way we're going to get Texas back, is if we have to reach out. We're dealing with a whole other generation, y'all, of kids. I heard, honestly, I can try to walk up to somebody that I feel like that needs to be talked to. These kids not listening unless they can relate. And that's just me being honest. We got some kids I heard that were raised totally different from us, and that's really what hurts my feelings, because I wasn't raised the way these kids are being raised now. And far as the guns, every last one of these guys that had something to do with my baby are all ex-felons. Every last one of them. But you know what? They got friends out here who not felons that could go just buy a gun from a pawn shop and give it to them. But they're not dealing with those people, you know. And to me, I felt like, I don't know, it was just a miss. Like, why would they go and make these laws to where anybody can buy a gun? You know, and then, honestly, I mean, just them going out and getting their own guns, I mean, you can buy a gun off the street. I hate to say it, you know, and then it's just certain ways that we have to fight around certain things and stuff like that. And then dealing with it one-on-one is just, it's hard. Like me, I got a 16-year-old son, it's my baby. I love him with all of my heart. And every day I try to do what I can do to try to keep him on the right path. I try to introduce him to people that'll try to talk to him, because I'm a mama. Y'all know how little boys are like, you know, what mama trying to tell me, you know. But no, you know, I love you, son. I want you to be here with me. I don't want you to be like these people. But he curious, you know, he's 16, like I said, so he curious, he want to know. It's like, to them right now, the money, the guns, the cars, the clothes, all of that is like exciting to them, you know, or it's just something about it that they really just want to know about. You know, I love what you stand for, believe me, I love what you stand for. I do, I really do, but I'm going to let you know right now, you got my vote. I mean that thing, you got my vote. You know, I just, you know, just these kids, y'all, when that situation happened with those kids getting killed at their school, I was at work. And I work at a nursing home. Okay, it's like when that happened and it came up and we had all heard about it in the nursing home, I guess you just have so many people out there that get the feeling the way you feel, so here they go, they all. It's like everybody want to surround me. you know, but no, my head is dropped. I'm in tears. I feel like I lost Shawan all over again, you know. But these people, they lost their kids, you know. And every time somebody loses a child for a mother that's already grieving from losing a child, it's like you lost your baby again, you know. And I hate that. I hate the way they're thinking now. Like, hate is such a strong word, y'all. I'm so sorry, but I mean, it's just, I don't know. We gotta get it back, y'all. We gotta get it back. We do.
Thank you also for sharing all of that. And what we've heard from so many other survivors, which is what happened in Uvalde, what we see in the news almost on a daily, weekly basis, is making you feel this all over again. And the fact that you're coming here and willing to share this, and I can see the pain, and I feel it, and we all are with you. I just speak for everybody here. We love you. We are doing everything we can to make sure that we do what is necessary so that no one else has to experience this again. Thank you both for being here. Very grateful to you both. We're going to bring in some other voices. The state representative soon, I hope to be Congresswoman Jasmine.
Because I think sometimes there is a perception of who sometimes will become a victim. So many of you may know, and some of you may not know, I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, but my grandmother lived on the south side of Chicago. I experienced my first drive-by when I was 7 years old. I had no idea what was going on. I thought it was fireworks. And my older cousin told me what happened. My aunt lives in Duncanville, Texas, has lived here her entire life. I used to come down every summer to visit my favorite aunt, my Aunt Billy. And I was about 9 years old when I came to visit, and we got a knock on the door. It was law enforcement. My older cousin had been killed here in Dallas. And then finally, as an adult, and this is a because sadly enough, I had actually experienced a courthouse shooting as well. And so in my life, I've had some close calls, but I want to tell all of y'all that we can do this together. And I also want you to know that it's not about where you started, it's about where you finish. And so while I never understood why I have had to experience such terrible things starting at the age of 7, here I am about to head to Congress as only the 4th African-American woman to ever serve in Congress from the state of Texas. And that's so I can be a real voice for real people who are really suffering in the state of Texas.
All right, if you have a question, please raise your hand and I will come to you.
Questions, comments, suggestion, or idea? We're open to everybody.
I just want to say, would you consider if you got in office to make it where you have to be 21 just like to buy liquor for like, I just think that it's very sad that we can't go to church without worried about getting shot. Here I am, a hell of a man. I thought I was a gangster or something as a kid, and now I'm scared to death. So I guess I wasn't no gangster. I have to hide at night when I go to sleep, and that's a shame. I'm in my own house. It's good to drive by. There's somebody not shooting at me, but shooting at someone else in the neighborhood. And we shouldn't have to live like that. We just shouldn't have to live where we have to stop at the station and worry about if we can get back in our car. We need somebody that can really do something for us, and I know, Mr. Beto, that you can, and I'm here to fight for you all the way because you know.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming out. Gentlemen with the Texas Organizing Project, and I just also want to give them a shout out. They are so often on the doors of these folks who've been overlooked and passed up before here in Dallas County, and Tarrant, and Barra, and Harris. To the gentleman's question, you all probably saw this. You know, sometimes folks will say, you know, only Democrats are willing to make changes or consider new ideas. I saw, and I don't know what party she belongs to, someone told me she's a Republican, the mayor of Fort Worth suggesting that we raise the age to 21 years old if you want to buy an AR-15 or AK-47. I think that's a good start. And I think there's a lot more that we need to do, but as I like to say, if we don't allow the perfect to become the enemy of the good, if we're willing to look for that common ground, if we're open to consensus, and I know this is an ugly word for a lot of people right now, but even compromise, even not getting everything that we want so we get something better than what we have, then there's no stopping us. So yes, let's start where we have some agreement. And that idea, universal background checks, red flag laws, safe storage laws, these are places where gun owners, non-gun owners, Republicans, Democrats, independents alike are on the same page. So thank you for bringing that up. Appreciate it.
I'm so happy the way that you got in front of the space. So we go around. I was coming here anyway. Something happened at my house last night. I've been up since 2 o'clock because last night at 2 o'clock, creeping to my daughter's bed, and he had walked down the sidewalk, and he says, "Get over here," and then you're on the sheets. And so I got my daughter there, and she's the best thing I have. So that spurred me to be here. But what I wanted to talk about was mental illness. So you know how when there's a list when you're closing, the beds you can buy a gun. You can't buy one, you can. But there's a secondary look at it. If you are a felon, that's a good time is. If you have had a domestic violence, as it's been so many years. But I'm troubled by the fact that when you buy a gun, when you go to get your TSA clearance, when you go to gun range, when you go to get your CHL, it's something big. And if I want a gun, I'm not going to tell you that. So it's against the law to lie. And once they kill somebody, cares about the lie, really. And so I'm wondering, you know that, and also, I know that there's HIPAA. Everybody has a right to privacy and medical records. However, we've got to find a way to balance HIPAA and public safety. Agreed. And there are people who are deemed by the SSI people to not be able to, they're unemployable because their illness is that bad. And it's awful to say this, but I want to know if there's a way that we can maybe have the people who are receiving those checks because of the severe mental illness have backing in their mental benefits too. Because so it works not working.
Right. It's true.
Thank you for being here. You know, I mentioned red flag laws earlier, and I gave the example of the shooter from Allen, Texas, who drove to El Paso, his mother called him. But I think it could also work in the way that you're just describing. If I have a family member who has a real mental health care challenge, it compromises their ability to make the kinds of decisions that you would want them to make if they have a firearm, about whether or not they use that on themselves. And this is tough for us to talk about. There are a lot of suicides by gun in the state of Texas. A lot of people, maybe some in this room, have lost a loved one by it. There are very often warning signs. But right now, you legally cannot intervene, even if it's connected to a mental health care issue. Red flag laws will allow us to do that. And then, of course, if someone is also running a risk because of a mental health care issue that might harm somebody else, we want to be able to intervene as well. That could be a family member, that could be a colleague, that could be a teacher, that could be somebody else in that person's life. And then to your other request about including that mental health care information on the person's medical record in the review that is done when they are purchasing a firearm, I think that's something that we should look at. Find ways, you said, to balance a person's expectation of privacy when it comes to the medical health care records, and then protect all of us from someone who may use a firearm against us. So I know that we can get that done. Again, I think this is going to be a function of being willing to collaborate, get consensus, and then ultimately get this done. Thank you for coming out. Appreciate it.
I love what you stand for. I'll now open many doors for you, and I'm going to continue doing so.
Thank you. Thank you.
There are things that we talked about tonight about good things, and they're going to keep the guns getting out there. What are we going to do with all these assault weapons that are already in the hands of the crazies and, those that we don't know, they're unstable, How do we protect ourselves against those?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, I talked about being haunted by the judgment of your kids, right? On August 3rd, 2019, I was visiting with those who had just been shot by that young man in El Paso. And I remember coming out of an intensive care room where a woman who'd been shot in the chest, and this is such an El Paso moment. I walk into her intensive care room, and she's like, oh, is the room okay for you? Are you comfortable? You want to move the heat up, the air down? She just wants to make sure I'm okay. She's got all these, wires and tubes and everything coming out from underneath the bedclothes. Her son is there, who I met, who said, I want you to meet my mom. Her mother had also been shot, luckily survived. Her aunt had also been shot, unfortunately died of her wounds. I'm leaving her room and I'm going into the waiting room, and it's full, as you can imagine, because dozens and dozens and dozens of people were shot. And a woman comes up to me, her name's Marcella. I've stayed in touch with her. And she said, my husband's on the operating table. He's been in there for the last 4 or 5 hours. I don't know if he's alive or dead or how he's doing. I can't get an answer. But she said, why does anybody need a gun like this? Because it was an AK-47, one of these weapons of war that shot her husband and killed somebody in our community. Her husband, by the way, ends up surviving, and I'm also still in touch with him. But that question haunted me because I thought, I certainly don't think we should be selling AR-15s and AK-47s for all the reasons that I gave.
Right.
But there are a whole hell of a lot of them out there. And when I see somebody on the Capitol steps with an AR-15 threatening lawmakers, vote my way or else. When I'm at a political event like this and people are wearing them, like someone would wear a purse or a backpack as, an accessory, but one that can take your life and take the life of many, many people in a matter of seconds. I confront that question that Marcella asked me that day. Why does anybody need one? And they don't. Look, if you want to hunt, there are plenty of weapons to choose from to hunt. AR-15 is not a good one for you. Not if you want to eat what you just shot. If you want a weapon for self-defense, take your pick. Handguns, shotguns, long guns. I don't know probably thousands of different kinds of guns that you can buy that are appropriate for that. If you want to collect, or use for sports, or keep it as a memento, again, almost limitless choices. But if you want to have a weapon whose sole purpose, the reason it was designed, engineered, and sold to militaries in the first place, is to kill people, I can't get right with that. Now, let me say this. I've talked to a lot of people. Let me just share this one with you, because this is fresh. Wednesday, I'm with Olivia's family in Uvalde, and I'm leaving the house. And as I'm leaving the house, her family, the rest of her family is coming. Cousins, uncles, everybody. They're there to help her out. And this young man approaches me. He says, Beto, I've heard what you said about AR-15s and AK-47s. And even though this just happened in my community, I disagree with you. I want to have that AR-15. I want to serve in the military. And if you're going to trust me with an M4, if you're going to trust me to give my life to this country, you should trust me to own an AR-15. I said, look, we clearly disagree with this one, but I bet you're going to own this responsibly. You're going to keep it locked up. You'll never let it out of your hands. You will, of course, never use it against another human being. But I want to share with you why I feel this way. And I told him that story. But then I said, look, it looks like we're at an impasse here. What do you feel about universal background checks? He said, I can get behind that. And I said, what about an extreme risk protection order, which I don't know the whole story in the shooter in Valley, but if he said things that were warning signs and you have a red flag law, maybe somebody could intervene in time and say, oh yeah, I want to make sure that we do that. We talked about safe storage. There was more that we agreed on than we disagreed on. And I just want to tell you this, as your governor, I'm going to make sure that we make progress, that we are effective, that we find the common ground where we can actually agree and move forward. So as important as this issue is to me, and it is very, very important, even more so is making sure that we make progress. And when we meet in a town hall just like this one, that Judge Clay Jenkins kicks us off in again as your governor, I hope to report back that I've brought together a critical number of Republicans and Democrats to get universal background checks red flag laws, and safe storage laws passed and signed into law right here in the state of Texas. Thank you very much.
I'm a high school teacher at Dallas ISD, and I have a comment or suggestion. We studied gun shootings in our class this semester, and the students did a nice job, and there are some, literally, 288 school shootings in the last 10 years, and the rest of the world, some 50. So, you could say that the U.S. population of some 4%, we had 5 times more school shootings, and the students said, well, there's videos about it in all countries, and there's mental health in all countries, and they clearly point out the gun culture. So, I was at a party recently, and someone described me pretty negatively, but I liked what she said. She said, oh, Beto's a loose cannon. And I said, well, don't you think with the system we have today, with the status quo so messed up, that's exactly what we need, but a loose cannon? And I'm happy to be a member of the loose cannon.
I was thinking about this in terms of Greg Abbott. Does he wake up wanting to see kids killed? Absolutely not. Did he want the grid to fail and 700 Texans to die? Did he want to lose 100 lives since 2020 in the CPS system? Does he want kids dying of diabetes in the state of Texas? No. Nobody wakes up and wants that. But the problem is he is part of a system where he is beholden to the NRA. That's more important to him than those children. He's beholden to the typical political process. You mentioned maybe somebody has described me as a loose cannon. But what I'd like to say is I'm just out of the system that's produced these consequences.
Yeah.
People are doing the same thing over and over again the same way and expecting a different outcome. And that's great. He's just part of that system. It's time that we turn the page and move forward. We just cannot expect him to do the right thing. So yeah, let's look at the system. Let's do that.
Yes, no. I'm a former Army infantry soldier, and the training we used in the military was very intensive. We learned to live with our rifle. It was part of us. I was told we never did the fire shot. We knew everything about that weapon. And still, when we had a live fire, we still had mistakes. We still had people make mistakes that kids get hurt. Imagine somebody who should just go 18 years old and go to the store and buy a rifle. I liken it to getting a driver's license and competing in the Indianapolis 500. If you're going to think you're going to go fight it or progress with the good guy with the gun, you don't have to train. And plus the firepower of that one round, if you're going to use it for home defense, it goes through the back guy, it goes through the floor, it goes through your kid's room, or maybe the neighbor's house. Absolutely unnecessary. I'm a gun owner, it's in a safe. When I went to Beretta in Dallas, I go get a background check. They said, hey, after 3 days, if they don't come back to you, come get your gun. And they called me. I didn't get my results of my background check. I mean, how often does that happen? I might be that guy. I might be mentally ill. I might be abusive. I went to Uvalde. I saw these kids. I saw little kids crying at the crosses of their classmates. The PTSD that them, the family, the community, the teachers, the parents, is unbelievable. And there's no respect for that. Absolutely no respect for that. And things need to change.
Thank you.
I lost my son to gun violence, to everyday gun violence. And when things like this happen, we all of us who lost our children feel it again. We're re-victimized over and over, and it's happening every day. So this is something we do every day. So my concern is, like I said, is that every And that's disturbing for me because I feel like we're the voice of our community and they should have stayed here. I want to recognize those who did. And thank you for those who did that.
Thank you for being here and also for saying that and sharing that and receiving all our love, and we're doing that for you as well. And it was your son's name, Corey? Yeah, I see it on your shirt. Thank you. And let's remember who as well. You know, you're right when you have something as horrific as what happened in Valley or Santa Fe High School or Sutherland Springs or Midland, Odessa or El Paso. It just completely commands the attention of the country. We cannot look away, and we're consumed with these thoughts day in and day out. It somehow breaks through. And you know, what does it say about us that this is happening every single day? Literally, that is not an exaggeration. Every single day in this state, that we are losing people 1, 2, 3 at a time. And it is so common that it never breaks through. I never hear about it. The first time that I know Corey's name, I'm so glad to meet his mom right now. So you ask, what can we do about this? And talk about all the guns on the street. I think you know this fact, there's 330 million Americans, más o menos, and I think there are 330 million or more guns in this country. That's nuts. And as the gentleman said earlier, every country has video games, healthcare challenges. Are we somehow inherently evil or violent or murderous? Or could it be the fact that it's so easy for anyone, literally anyone, to have a firearm in the state? And that's the answer. So, repealing or overturning permitless carry, which right now allows anyone to carry in the street, is a great place for us to start trying. We've got to get some of this that's a really matters because even in the case of these straw purchases, folks who buy a gun for someone who otherwise wouldn't be able to pass a background check, very often they're buying from private sellers who don't have to go through these background checks. We'd be able to stop more of them there. I want to partner with local communities wherever there is a voluntary gun buyback program. We have way too many guns on our streets. People need the money, they're willing to turn themselves voluntarily buy guns to make sure we reduce some of that danger that's out there on the streets. But I just want to acknowledge that there is no easy answers. We can do everything that I just described today and more, and we're still going to have gun rights. Not as much. We're going to reduce the amount. Fewer people will have to lose their lives. Fewer families will have to grieve. But we're going to still have that problem. I say that just to acknowledge those on the other side who say, hey, that's none of what you just said is going to solve this or that or this other specific instance. And that's true. But it will save this other one and hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of other instances of gun violence in this state and in this country. And as long as we can do some good, let us get it done. So those are the things I would focus on. Thank you.
Hey, first of all, I'd like to say, Beto, he's tough as nails. You can't get no comfort with that. My name is Jasmine. I'm a lifetime honorary PTA member. My first goal is to look out for kids, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stand tough with Beto in doing that. I'm a lifelong Democrat running as an independent for U.S. Congress District 30. Thank you for what you do, Beto.
This is going to be our last question here.
Hello, Beto. Hi. Sorry, I get nervous. I got so many things. But I told my dad, I was like, I'm going to go talk to Beto over. Sorry. My name's Sarah. I'm a member of the Texas Organization out there. In 2016, when the custody was built, I decided that I was going to go march in downtown Dallas. My birthday is July 7th. And so that means that that day I was trapped downtown with dozens of other peaceful protesters. I had a federal building. My phone died. My family did not know what had happened to me. So, I can never forget what the smell of gunpowder smells like. I can tell a part of my story, but I feel like it's very important. I really love the passion that you bring to the things that you say. I'm from Michigan. I argue with my friends back home that say that you are not liberal enough. I appreciate that you go and you have conversations with people. So like you talked we know that the majority of Texans do support like the background checks, red flag laws, and unfortunately we know that there are a lot of people on the far right that are going to turn solutions-oriented conversations like the ones that you're trying to have into fear-mongering and these extremist, freedom-litless tests. And so when you're governorship, you know that you have to clearly communicate what our shared values are. Like you're doing here with us tonight, right? That's important. But like, how are you going to frame these conversations for all these folks in Texas in a way that's going to bring people into the conversation and keep them focused on solutions instead of fear? I know that you can do it, but yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you. So, I was in Congress for 6 years, 3 terms, and I was a Democrat in a Republican majority institution. And I held town halls. This was my commitment when I was a candidate. So I'm going to hold a town hall, open to the public, all comers welcome, no holds barred every single month. We'll hold it in the gym or a public library or outside in the plaza downtown in El Paso. Anyone can come, ask any question, level any criticism, hold me to account. And I did it. And I'll tell you what, when I was voting on a given issue, I knew now I'm going to cast this vote, and I got to explain this to my constituents because they're going to have questions. Or I told them that I was going to work on access to mental health care for veterans who have an other than discharge because at the time you had OTH discharge, you couldn't get into the VA. I can't just say I'm working on this and these damn Republicans are going to go, I got to get this done. So I took a bill that we had written to open up mental health care access to veterans who were taking their lives at twice the rate of the general veterans population, which is already terribly high. Shared it with a Republican colleague and said, I like the idea, that's why I like some of the specifics, but you're missing a few things. You have too much of the other over here. Will you make some changes so we can get this done? And that was my decision point. Do I go back there and to your friends in Michigan, rah, 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 I'm a Democrat, I'm doing the right thing, and these stupid Republicans don't like veterans, or do I acknowledge the only way I'm going to get the thing done is by shaving a little bit off of what I want to accept what is his, and then go make our cases to our colleagues in the House. And that's what we did. We got it passed 435-0, passed the Senate. You know who signed that into law? The one man on this planet that I agree with on almost nothing, Donald J. Trump. But we found enough common ground to get that bill signed. I mentioned this to you because some people say, look, that's okay. We win in November. You take office in January. The session starts. There's a good chance there's a Republican majority House and Senate. That's divided government. How are we going to get anything done? Well, that's on all of us, right? Public sentiment and the popular will and the people who are here willing to hold their representatives to account are the answer to that. And I, for my part, am going to do everything I can to clear out the common ground and invite everyone to, or if they invite me to step over there. We may be enemies on the ballot, but once we're in government, we are serving all Texans. So I mentioned earlier, I'm very, very open to making concessions, to finding consensus, to looking for common ground, even a compromise, so it gets something done. Because I fear you. I don't want to come back here next year and you say, hey, Patrick, you said you were going to do X, Y, and Z. You got none of it done. And if I'm blaming Republicans, plumb me right out of this room because that's going to be on me and on all of us. You've got my commitment to do everything in my power to get the job done. Thank you for asking the question. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming out. Very, very grateful to you. Really, really, really appreciate it.